That's good.
I want to. Check me out, like. Hey, every time I look out, I'm on my lookout. Cause niggas tripping, no I ain't hoping. No sense in voting for politicians. All of that hating, don't be creating. Food in my kitchen, all of that talking without no walking. Can't help my vision when I step out and put my neck out. They try to play me so I don't go out without my blowout. Brought that 380, all of my brothers pray for their mothers. Cause I can't tame them, got no answer. Can't kill their cancer, how can you blame them? I was hoping I could be open with all my feelings, but not fuck it. I take that bucket without no ceilings. I've been praying, but I ain't saying that I ain't stressing, I ain't moping, cause I'm just hoping I learn my lesson. I need G's for all my G's, so could you please try? Off your knees and on your P's, don't let your dreams die. I plant my seed to fill your need, to get your brain food. If you like me, the shit you see will give you strange moods. So I'm just praying for answers. I know they hiding the truth from us. Pray for protection. I know they plotting on newcomers. Right through the city, my reefer reeking, my speaker speaking. My conscience stressing, but I be knowing that he be tweaking. Say I was thinking this weekend we get to linking up. Roll some of that good in the wood and we fought the linking up. She understanding my language, I think she speaking well. She ease the pain on my brain, it's causing my people hell. And since you looking, I'm looking, maybe we find a way to put your heart to the surface and put your mind away. They dropped us here on a dying planet without permission. No pot to pissing and trying to offer you propositions. What about my struggle be funny? They call it entertaining. Niggas got them snakes in they huddle, watch who you entertaining. All about my freedom, so I'ma need them to come correct it. Thinking I'm your enemy, all your energy misdirected. I shed a tear for my people, I struggle to be connected. I got that call from my cousin, I'm glad we reconnected. Why they always hating on moves we making and trying to slow 'em? Wish I could give you that reason, but I don't even know.
What is up, SODFS family? Welcome in and thank you for joining us on another episode of SODFS, brought to you by Sons of Dynasty and proud members of True North Fantasy Football. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at Dynasty Sons and subscribe to the TNFF network on YouTube so that you never miss a show with us. I am Dan. You can find me on Twitter at Dan Brown NFL. And here to my left is my co-host Nate. You can find him at Nate_FFL. Nate, we are live here on a Friday night, heading into the weekend. We have a quality slate here in Week 18 as some teams are battling it out. Other teams have pretty much been waving the white towel, what feels like for weeks at this point. But we're here to wade through all of that. But before we get into that, let me start by asking you how you are doing on this evening and how was your week?
The week was not great, but I'm feeling a lot better now. Happy to be here on a Friday. It is kind of wild that the regular season is wrapping up now, even with an extra game this year. It comes and goes so quick, man. But we're going to finish off the regular season strong, and of course, we'll be here for the playoffs too.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to the playoff slates this year. I had a lot of fun last year. I was hyped up about the Thanksgiving slates, and I got shellacked for the most part that week. So I'm thinking these playoff slates are going to be really good to me, to you, and SODFS viewers alike. So, but before we get there, let's get through this Week 18 madhouse where, I don't think I'm going to play any cash games, but I am looking forward to getting a little bit weird, building some GPPs with you tonight.
Yeah, so one thing we want to do a little different this week that we don't do every week is we want to go through the games on the main slate that actually have some meaning to them, because there's a lot of teams, like you said, playing for nothing, and there's other teams with their whole year on the line right now. So we're going to go through some of these games on the main slate that mean a lot. We're going to start with the Colts and the Jaguars. That's at 1 p.m. on Sunday. Colts lost to the Raiders last week, hurt, but they still get into the playoffs with a win over the Jags. Obviously, the Jags aren't that good, so it seems like the Colts should be able to get the job done. I really like JT in this game. Steelers at Ravens, that's another 1 o'clock game. Steelers defeated the Browns on Monday Night Football in what was an absolutely disgusting game to watch. But they do now have a reason to play all out against the Ravens. They still have a slim chance of actually making the playoffs.
Yeah, another one we have is the Titans at the Texans. That is a 1:00 game as well. And if the Titans win this game, they do take the number 1 seed in the AFC, and a Kansas City win on Saturday ups the stakes for them to win. But even if the Chiefs were to lose, the Bengals would then have a shot to take over the Titans for the number 1 seed. Tennessee is absolutely all in on Week 18, and there will be some guys on that Tennessee roster I plan on targeting this weekend.
Yeah, there's some definitely some appealing plays in that game for sure, bro.
The Bills versus Jets is an afternoon game, 4:25 exactly, and the Bills actually need to win to keep their lead in the AFC East. The Patriots play at the same time, so they won't know the outcome of each other's games. So essentially, both teams will be all in it, and both teams are teams that you can target when making builds. I think that's got to be a main focus this week is locating these teams that are playing to win it in Week 18 and going with guys like that, because that's where projecting the outcomes and the usage of these players is going to be, the most spot on is in those occasions. Other teams that really have nothing to lose, that maybe want to see some of these younger guys before they head into the offseason and are faced with some tough decisions themselves. Those are going to be up in the air, and there's quite a few teams that are in that very situation. So being able to wade through the two and really hone in on the guys, but at the same time, that's going to condense some ownership across the main slate, because we're not the only ones that are hip to this. It's well known that there's teams that are playing for marbles and there's teams that aren't. So, being able to hone in on those guys, but at the same time, find those guys that might be going a little bit under the radar in those same games and coming in at, sub 10% ownership this week is going to be guys that I'm targeting.
Yeah, another thing to consider too with that game is, while it's only Friday right now and the weather does change, they are predicting 20-mile-an-hour plus winds right now for that Bills-Jets game. So it could change, but it's also something, worth keeping an eye on, just like everything else this week. Another game, we got another 4:25 game. It's going to be the New Orleans Saints, the Atlanta Falcons. Saints still have a shot to make the playoffs with a win and a Niners loss to the Rams. So they're obviously going to be playing all their starters. They're going to be playing their hearts out. Patriots at Dolphins, another 4:25 game. The Pats still have a shot at the AFC East title and even the number 1 seed if multiple upsets happen. It's a long shot, but they are also going to be playing all their starters, playing to win.
Yeah, and then you have the Cardinals versus the Seahawks, another afternoon game, 4:25. A lot of late swap appeal in this slate, so that's something to keep an eye on as well when building these lineups. Is having these late games to be able to get a glimpse of the 1:00 ownerships and see where if you have guys that started at 1 and that are up at 15 to 20%, you might have to get a little bit more contrarian with these afternoon late swaps in order to really set yourself apart from the field. So I love when there's a slew of afternoon games with meaningful games, such as games that we're talking about. It really allows you to be flexible heading into the main slate towards those afternoon games.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Them late swaps, man, can be the difference between, winning a GPP and finishing outside of the money. Late swap is key, man. And that's something you're always pushing on everybody, and something that I'm even kind of bad at times because we're all busy and stuff. But that late swap appeal this week is really excellent. The last game we're going to talk about is the Bucs versus Panthers, another 4:25 game. Buccaneers can't fall lower than the number 4 seed at this time, but with a win and a Rams loss, they could jump up to as high as number 2. So, they're going to be playing, assuming that they're going to win that game and hopefully get a Rams loss. So I'm looking forward to that one too.
Yeah, and those are pretty much most of the games that we're going to be looking to target when creating our builds. Now, you can have some one-offs and all across. There's going to be value that very well may present itself here in the coming days. There could be teams that outright come out and say, hey, we're going to sit these guys and so is going to be the lead ball carrier for this game. And so you may see a lot of guys that end up being very high owned with a low price tag. And that's something that you're going to have to work in. Jordan Love, potentially this week. Huntley now being named the starter is priced in the similar range as Love. These types of guys may end up being, cash game options this week, but at the same time, not something that you can rightfully ignore when making a GPP build.
Yeah, absolutely, man. When Huntley was announced the starter, I got pretty excited, man, because we've seen him and Mark Andrews absolutely light it up when he's been in there. So I'm definitely looking forward to that game a lot.
Yeah, I actually have Huntley. I had him on here a couple of days ago, just under the assumption with what we had seen out of Lamar Jackson in his practice participation levels that he was unlikely to go. But this is a must win for the Ravens with Lamar Huntley in his price tag just above Jordan Love. I think I might have a little bit of Huntley this week as I think that we've seen where his ceiling is coming off of a less than great game, against the Rams. I do like Huntley for a bounce back this week in week 18 at that price tag.
Yeah, man, there's a lot to like there. I like Huntley, and I like another guy that we'll touch on in a little bit here. I don't want to give too much away.
Well, before I, go ahead and talk about all the guys that I plan on talking about later on in the show, let's get into it with some of our pay up options. Starting at the quarterback position, I'll go with Josh Allen, the New York Jets versus Buffalo. As you mentioned, weather might be something to keep an eye on. But as seen this past week, it doesn't really matter with Josh Allen as the rushing appeal is there. This is a matchup that we did, however, see just a few weeks back in Week 10 when Josh Allen threw for 366 yards and 2 scores while averaging 13-plus yards per attempt. Currently, the Jets rank 27th versus the quarterback position, allowing a 22.10 fantasy points per game, and just this past week allowed Tom Brady, with limited options at his disposal, to pass for 410 yards and 4 touchdowns. I'm riding with the league's QB1 into Week 18 in a juicy matchup, and I don't mind paying up to do so with Josh Allen.
I like that call. To me, there was like 2 main priced up quarterbacks that I liked. One was going to be Josh Allen, and the other one is Kyler Murray. Cardinals versus Seahawks. Murray's priced at 7,400. Arizona could end up as high as 2, 3, or 5 seed, depending on the outcome of some of Sunday's different games. So, like we said before, they have something to play for. Vegas has the Cardinals favored by 7 points at home with a projected point total of 48. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that's the highest projected point total on the slate. Most of them are down around 43, 44, so I like that a lot. The Seahawks have been good against the run this year. They're 8th in DVOA, but they're not very good against the pass, ranking 27th. So there's an obvious, a clear path to the least resistance for this team. As usual, I think Seattle's going to want to ground and pound the ball, but I think that Kyler is going to force them to get aggressive and throw a little bit, which is going to make this game just more competitive. It's going to turn out better for Russell Wilson and them guys too. But the Cardinals offense hasn't been the same without DeAndre Hopkins. There's no doubt about that. But Murray has gone for at least 20 Draftkings points in 4 of the last 5 games since returning from injury, with a high just shy of 31 points. He's got that dual threat ability. He's got the rushing prowess. So it provides you the high floor and the high ceiling that we like to talk about quite often on this show.
Yeah, and actually in matchups with a total above 48 points, Murray averages 23.91 DK points on the year. And with all that in mind, Run the Sims' current ownership projection of 13.4%, likely to climb, but the ownership projection is currently second only to Josh Allen, who we mentioned at 18.3%. Both of these guys are in great spots in win scenarios. And if you're going to pay up at the quarterback position, I wouldn't really move outside of these two.
Yeah, same here, man. Just the way with the game script's going to go, and the talent with the game script things. So that, to me, I think these are definitely my 2 locks for pay up quarterbacks.
And as far as running backs go, I am going back to my guy who I had last week in David Montgomery. Yes, he is getting priced up, but still sub 7K coming in this week at 6,800. He's seen an average of 25 touches per game over the past 3 weeks and scored 22.3 PPR points per game over the past 2 weeks. The Vikings currently rank 27th in rushing yards allowed per game and rank 28th in yards allowed over the past 3 weeks. No matter who's under center for the Bears. At this point, we do know it will be Andy Dalton. And really in PPR formats, I feel like Andy Dalton is better for David Montgomery, as he seems a little bit more willing to hit him with the check down passes. Montgomery's usually good for 5 to 6 targets, when Andy Dalton is under center, and I will take that. He's getting true workhorse usage over the past few weeks since he's come back, and I can't get enough of Montgomery again this week.
Yeah, there's, this game doesn't have a lot of meaning behind it, but I think you're going to see these. It's a divisional matchup. I think both these teams are going to play hard. In the past, Montgomery has averaged 106 scrimmage yards in 4 career games versus the Vikings, and the Vikings just allowed over 200 scrimmage yards to Green Bay's ball carriers last week. So in my opinion, and I think in yours as well, Montgomery is basically a must start against this defense Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Yep. And this is my lock of the week. So especially this week when I sat down, I did come up with a couple core guys, and I went back and forth. If I had to get rid of him, who would I put in? But this guy I'm keeping in my lineups. It's Jonathan Taylor, Colts at Jags. He is 9,300. He's the second highest priced player on the slate, second only to Cooper Kupp. Another thing worth noting, will it happen? Probably not, but he needs 266 rushing yards to hit that 2K mark on the year. So while that's unlikely, JT is still in an excellent spot this week. Price tag's high, and the projected that should help the projected ownership hopefully stay down a little bit. I do think it'll still probably be up there, but this game script this week, if Indy gets out even to somewhat of a little bit of a lead ahead of the third quarter, I think they're, instead of pulling JT, I think they're going to give him the rock even more. He's scored 20 total touchdowns on the season. 18 of those have been on the ground. He has 87 red zone carries and 4 multi-touchdown games this year. He's received at least 20 carries in 6 of the last 7 games and gone over 100 yards in all but 1. First 3 weeks of the year, he started out slow. He had a 17-point game, a 6. There was another single-digit one in there. But since then, he's gone for at least 20 DQ points in 11 of 13 games. 4 of those over 30 and that high of 56 in that 4-touchdown game that we all remember a couple weeks back.
Yeah, damn it if he didn't blossom into everything that we wanted him to be over the course of this season. And it's been wonderful to see, him get the work and really be efficient with the work that he is getting, no matter the touches. Every week it seems like we're screaming for more touches, but he's getting it done. He's making defenses pay. He is the next, Derrick Henry, if you will, as far as just a guy that can really tote the rock 28, 30 times and wear defenses down in any given play, is a threat to take it to the house. So, just a quick hat tip to JT and what he has become this year, and a true dynasty RB1, if you will, coming into the 22 season.
I did have some hesitation too on JT. I've never doubted his talent. To me, the slight bit of hesitation I had coming into this year was, as we said at the top of this thread up here, it's the lack of pass catching work that we like to see out of running backs. And with Nyheim Hines there, I kind of worried that, maybe he wouldn't have he'd have a good year, but maybe not the breakout year that he has had. So like you said, hat tip to him, man. Ultra talented running back. Love watching him.
Let's move on into the wide receiver position here. I got a little bit different this week, trying to stick to the games that I think have meaning to them. And while Seattle doesn't really have much to play for, they are definitely in the spoiler category, and another divisional rival game here. I think that they would love nothing else but to smack the Cardinals around this week. So I'm going with my guy Tyler Lockett, who was really, really pushed aside this past week as we saw DK Metcalf rumble into the end zone for 3 touchdowns. But death taxes and Tyler Lockett going bananas, shout out to Gymnastic, when facing the Cardinals. Over the past 3 games, Seattle has played the Cardinals. Lockett has absolutely torched them for 382 yards and 4 touchdowns. We did see DK Metcalf this past week have the big game, but I think that's just going to keep the ownership down on Lockett in a game that the Cardinals have been stout against the run lately and a lot more susceptible against the pass. Let me see Russ Cook be a little bit of a spoiler action and Tyler Lockett in a get-right game against these Cardinals.
Yeah, even when they played earlier this year, he didn't have he didn't have a touchdown reception, but he still had 4 receptions for 115 yards on 5 targets. So, like you said, he gets his way with the Arizona team. So, I love that play, and it's a great pivot, like you said, man. You're going to need to differentiate yourself a little bit this week too to be successful. My wide receiver, he's literally my guy. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's $6,800. So, I'm not jumping to the top of this, and I will mention a guy briefly before I turn it back over to you, Dan, but Amon-Ra has been a league winner the last couple of weeks. And like I said, I couldn't be happier about it. Just watching him in college and then writing up some draft profiles as we headed into the year, I seen his talent, man. I seen his passion to play football. So seeing him come out over the last 5 weeks and look like a guy that's been around the league for years and is already into his prime, man. I mean, the last 4 weeks, his scores have been 24.8, 15.3, 23.5, 26 points, and then, of course, the 38.4 outing last week. In the last 4 games, he has no less than 8 targets in any of these games, and he's gone for 90, 91, and 111 yards in the last three straight games with a touchdown. Faces the Packers defense this week. They're not really going to have anything to play for since they've already locked up the number 1 seed in the NFC, but they're always going to play hard. You know what I mean? The Packers are still a good football team. We don't know when Jordan Love could take over. It could come out before the game that Rodgers, doesn't suit up at all. But I do think we'll see Rodgers in there. I do think he'll throw the football. And I think he'll keep this game competitive, meaning that Jared Goff and the Lions are going to have to try to keep up too, because I don't think they're going to just roll over and die. They've been playing hard for Coach Campbell the last, couple weeks. So I'm excited for this game. It wasn't on our mentioned list of, games of importance, but as a guy that's watched the Packers and the Lions his whole life, 9 times out of 10, they're going to play hard the whole game anyway. And then, go ahead.
I was just going to say, while we're here talking St. Brown, man, I have a SODFS confession to lay down here. Building lineups last week, I had a lot of St. Brown. He was making his way into a lot of my builds. About 15 minutes, before lock at 1 o'clock, I'm going through my lineups like I typically do, kind of making sure I'm not missing anything, doing a little bit of that tinkering that can get you into trouble. Well, I started looking and I start seeing, St. Brown, and I had massive exposure. And so I started to tilt a little bit. Right around that same price range was none other than Antonio Brown. And so, he made the switch in a couple of lineups, and I was watching it unfold as AB was ripping his uniform off and heading towards the end zone and then back to the locker room and never to be seen again. And then I just watched St. Brown pile up the fantasy points as the afternoon game continued, and it was burning. I was tilting. I didn't bring it up. I didn't want to go off on a rant in the group chat, but I figured I'm going to save it for the show. But just a little out on myself there that sometimes tinkering can get you into trouble. AB really stuck it to me that this past week, and hat tip to St. Brown, who is a stud that I shouldn't have doubted the exposure levels.
Well, yeah, there's no way to predict those things. I mean, obviously you don't want 10 lineups with 10 of the same guys. So you had all good intentions there, but you definitely can't predict AB having, whatever mental things he's going through there and caused that all to happen. I've read various reports and we won't get into all that and stuff, but can't predict that, man. I mean, it does suck. That's kind of brutal, but you live and you learn, right?
Absolutely. Nate, you ready to move into the tight end position here as far as our pay up tight ends go?
Yeah, I'm pretty much ready. Couldn't really skip past the wide receiver portion without mentioning Cooper Kupp and the absolutely ridiculous year he's had, and it reflects on his price this week at $9,700. Obviously, the Rams are playing to win. Kupp is 12 catches and 136 receiving yards away from breaking 2 different single-season records. So I think that there is a world out there that you can get Cooper Kupp and Jonathan Taylor in your lineup this week. I've done it on a few builds, so just wanted to give him that respect and keep that in the back of your head when you're doing your builds on Sunday morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to adjust to what's happening around you. I have had a couple of lineups that I've made. Getting those 2 guys into a lineup, you really have to punt at 2 or 3 positions. Usually it's the tight end because we always punt at the tight end position. But if you don't, let me tell you about my guy George Kittle, this week, coming in at 6,700. Los Angeles is league average against tight ends, but they actually haven't allowed a touchdown over the past 6 weeks. I do expect Deebo Samuel to get a healthy dose of Jalen Ramsey this week, allowing Kittle to have one of the better receiving matchups for the offense. After slaying for a 3-game stretch by George Kittle, he did come crashing back down to earth over the past 2 weeks, going 2 for 21 and 1 for 29 while receiving only 5 combined targets. Whispers are, as of right now, that Jimmy G is expected to play, which I think bodes better for the receiving likes of a George Kittle. And if Deebo Samuel is indeed seeing a little bit of tougher coverage, maybe we see that 9 or 10 target game for George Kittle this week in a game that San Fran does need to stay competitive.
Yeah, I love this call, man. I actually do. I love it quite a bit. And, if Garoppolo does play, it is going to help the pass catchers, like you said. I still think there's a world where Trey Lance ends up playing, but we'll find out a little bit later on. But the thing that I like about Kittle this week is he's coming off 2 down games in the single digits in DraftKings scoring. He's going to be under 5% owned. I would literally almost guarantee that right now. So one thing that I'm doing this week in a few of my preliminary builds is I'm using Kittle and I'm stacking him with the tight end that I've got next on the list. That's Zach Ertz of the Arizona Cardinals. I mentioned Kyler Murray earlier. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins is out. I believe Rondale Moore is out too. I believe I read that somewhere. If he is, Ertz is in a great spot here. He's facing the Seahawks in Week 18. He had his best game of the year earlier this year against Seattle in Week 11. He had 8 catches for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. And then since Hopkins has been out of the lineup, Ertz has emerged as Kyler Murray's favorite target. He's been targeted 33 times over the last 3 games, which leads all tight ends and is second only to Devontae Adams for pass catchers in the league. In that span, Adams has 34. Seattle has also allowed 6 receiving touchdowns to tight ends over the last 7 games. So I think Ertz is in a prime spot here. I'm not sure what his ownership will really map out to be. I think it's projected right now somewhere around 10. I think it'll probably climb. But to differentiate myself in a few builds, I've actually went Kittle and Ertz in the same lineup.
Yeah, I like Zach Ertz this week as well. Really, that Cardinals offense, since DeAndre Hopkins has been out of the picture, it's been Christian Kirk and Zach Ertz, and sprinkling a little bit of my punt from last week in Wesley, who seems to be catching fire down there in the red zone, might be another option this week. I think he got priced up closer to 4 this week, if I'm not mistaken. But really, it's Zach Ertz and Christian Kirk, and that's the great thing about Kyler Murray stacks is you don't really have to pay up like some of these other big time stacks that you have to pay up for. You can save by, Zach Ertz is, if not the number 1, the number 2 target in a Kyler Murray offense right now, and you're paying $5,300 for him instead of $6,800 or $7,200, and Christian Kirk is right there in that same price range. So you can have a Murray, Kirk, and Ertz stack, and it's really not costing you all that much. And to be a part of an offense that's looking to win in Week 18, I might have an Arizona stack. And I mentioned Lockett as a potential bringback. Elijah Penny, another guy who I know we've chuckled over the past weeks, but hat tip to Elijah Penny. He's looked like, he is becoming somewhat of the real deal for a running back there in Seattle. And I think they're going to continue to beat that drum heading into the offseason as they're faced with a tough decision, all around. We don't know what's going to happen with Seattle. We don't know if Elijah Penny or if Penny is going to be a part of the Seattle, long term or not. But this week, I think he's going to get more than his fair share of carries against Arizona. So love Arizona stacks with potential Seattle bring back options as well. Is a game that I might be building some lineup stacks around.
Yeah, on our show a few weeks ago, I gave you a lot of shit for playing Penny, and I definitely am here to eat my words. Before we move on, though, I had one more stat here written down. So I mentioned the 33 targets over the last 3 weeks. Over the last 4 weeks, Ertz has 40 targets. There's only 4 players in the NFL that have more than him: Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So you're getting Zach Ertz at $5,300 while you're paying, outside of Amon-Ra, you're paying top dollar for the rest of these guys that are just soaking in these targets. So again, I love Ertz this week. Before we get into our bargain segment, we want to give a shout out to Trophy Smack. Obviously, the regular season's wrapping up, and so is the fantasy football season. So right now is the perfect time for you to go over to Trophy Smack. Use our promo code SODFS. when you order your trophy, and you'll get yourself a free ring as well. They have great, unique, and customizable fantasy trophies over there to show off your hard-earned victory this year. And like I said, SODFS, get yourself a championship ring so you can take that bling with you outside of the house too.
All right, Nate, let's get into our bargain section here. We'll start with our quarterback position, and you're going back to the well on Taysom Hill at 6,200 versus my Atlanta Falcons. Tell me about Taysom this week.
Yeah, my bad. My Google Doc froze for a minute. Yeah, I like Taysom Hill a lot this week. Before it came out that Tyler Huntley was starting, Taysom was pretty much going to be my favorite cheap guy. I do think I almost prefer Huntley, but I'll leave that to you. Hill took over the under center duties for the Saints, obviously, when Jameis Winston was lost for the season with a knee injury. He's a very diverse and multi-talented player, as we all knew. New Orleans has kind of been leaning on that. They've been leaning to Hill's strengths. Right now, they've got a 53% run rate and a 53% pass rate, 47% run rate. So they're using Hill in all the best ways possible. Despite one of the worst defenses in the league, the Saints are facing the Atlanta defense this week. They ranked 29th in DVOA and 30th in rush DVOA. So it's given a discounted price tag on Draftkings in an ideal matchup. I think Hill opens access to, some higher priced players. Obviously, we've mentioned a few studs that are over $9,000 or pushing $9,000. So if you can pay down a little bit at quarterback, I think that'll help you get them skilled player positions you're really looking for.
Yeah, and as always, ownership percentages will be key. So make sure you are using tools, available at places like Run the Sims or Fantasy Points, if you will. As the time of this podcast, his projected ownership for Sunday is currently sitting at around 6%. That might go up a little bit. That could come down a little bit if we get more word on Jordan Love taking the reins for 4 quarters. We very well could see him become one of the higher priced quarterbacks on the slate, leaving Taysom Hill, who would become more of a mid-range guy at that point at 6,200 to stay hovering right around that 5% range, but something to definitely keep an eye on. Another guy that we've mentioned a couple times now at this point, and Tyler Huntley, who will be facing the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's coming in at 5,700. Lamar Jackson's battling that ankle injury. The Ravens are in a must-win spot here. So, grabbing another start versus the Steelers defense, I am willing to take a shot on Huntley at this price tag. After a less than great performance last week versus the Rams, he did complete 20 of 32 passes for 197 yards and 1 reception, while also running for another 54 yards on 6 carries. The rushing upside is still there. A must-win game, rushing quarterback, a connection with Mark Andrews, and I love, Huntley to Andrews. It might be a popular one, so that's something to keep an eye on as well. But, I don't think you can go wrong with Huntley in this matchup.
I like Huntley a lot here. Since, Lamar's been out, he's averaging 21.5 fantasy points per game, 53 rushing yards average in 4 starts. So I love that dual threat ability. So Huntley's a great call here. I'd probably prefer him over Taysom, to be honest with you, and save that $500. Dropping down into the running backs, this is a player that I didn't really see myself ever really recommending, kind of like Josh Jacobs about a month ago. But I'm going to talk about Devin Singletary. He's basically come out of nowhere the last couple of weeks, but he's showing why he should be the number 1 back in the Bills offense. Zach Moss has lost all of his carries over the last few weeks, and Singletary is proving to be their number 1 option. The Bills have the Jets this week, who have the worst fantasy rushing defense in the league. Vegas has the Bills favored by 16.5 points at home. There's still plenty to play for in this game, as the win does secure, as we mentioned before, the AFC East title for Buffalo. Over the last 3 games, Singletary has taken the reins of the backfield, rushed 23, 12, and 22 times, and he's gone over 100 yards once and scored twice. Shout out to Jacob Gibbs from Sportsline and CBS Fantasy. I follow his tweets a lot, and it's a lot of great information. Week 17 running back route involvement leaders. Singletary has a 77% involvement percentage, second only to Sony Michel of the Rams. So I just think that makes it an even better play. Singletary $6,000. I had a couple people on Twitter ask me if I would stack him with Josh Allen, and that's something I think I might avoid there. Really, I think you can use Singletary or Allen as a way to get off of the other guy, but I like both guys this week quite a bit.
Yeah, and I don't mind that stack, but I probably would stay away from any of the receiving options. And you're really just hoping that Buffalo run game really just runs all over. And Allen does end up either getting some, red zone touchdowns to Knox or Diggs, or maybe another couple of rushing touchdowns once again. But I don't mind that. There's probably not going to be a ton of people that are going to be getting behind that build. And anytime you can find a build that not a lot of people are going to be getting behind, that might be a build that I'm interested in. So I don't mind that call at all. I'm going to talk about another running back down there in the mid-5 range in Donta Foreman of the Tennessee Titans. They're facing the Houston Texans, and he's coming in at 5,700 this week. There's a few things that draw me towards Foreman this week, and that's that the Titans need to win this game in order to lock up their bye, as we mentioned, and the fact that Derrick Henry is on the cusp of returning for the Titans on the playoffs. I feel like the Titans are perfectly fine to run Foreman into the ground this week and ensure the win. The Titans are 10-point favorites with a 26.5-point implied team total, which is the fourth most. And against Coach Craig's Houston Texans team that ranks worst in yards per carry allowed at 4.89 and second worst in rushing fantasy points per game allowed at 18.9, I like Foreman this week as he seems to be the guy in the absence of Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I love Foreman. I think me and Lofty over there at Awesome are probably like the only two human beings that were on Foreman about 3 weeks ago. He doesn't really have the high snap percentages like other workhorse backs, but he still led the league in carries at 26 last week. And he also ran for 100-plus yards in 3 of the last 5 games. Still priced, in my opinion, too cheap at 5,700, so I'm all about it this week. Moving on.
Go ahead, Nate.
I was going to say, moving on into the wide receivers, there's a guy, Ray McLeod. I was super high on him before I found out that Deontay Johnson was going to be back this week. I'm happy to hear that because we both love Deontay quite a bit. But it didn't really cause me to pivot too hard off of Ray McLeod. He's priced at $3,800. He's had at least 8 targets in 3 of the last 4 games. And over the last 5 games, he's played 67%, 85%. 67% again, 63% and 65% of the snaps. So he's on the field, and when you're on the field, you have opportunity, and opportunity, it's not as great as efficiency for fantasy, but opportunity is still key. He hasn't exceeded 35 receiving yards yet, so the ceiling's going to be low, but he's gotten a total of 4 red zone targets. So that's a big thing for me. I've seen a lot of people asking about Chase Claypool. He's priced just above $5,000. I think he's 5,100. And a lot of guys look at Claypool and they think of when they're doing GPPs, he's going to be the high upside guy. But the fact of the matter is right now is Ben is simply not looking to throw deep. He doesn't trust his offensive line. So I think them short yardage targets are going to go to Ray and Deontay. That underneath work is, it's going to be theirs for the taking. So I like Ray. The price is really cheap. I don't really think you can go wrong. I think he's going to hit value at that price tag, especially if he gets another 8 targets.
Yeah, I like him this week as well at that price tag. It's one of my more favorite sub 4K wide receiver guys. And if you're going to get the guys like JT or Cooper Kupp into your lineups, you're going to need guys like Ray McLeod to get you, the savings there at a 3,800 tag. So I like that call a lot by you there, Nate. I'm going more in the mid-price range here at 5,600 with my Atlanta Falcon and Russell Gage. A little Falcons love making the cut this week, and Gage has faced a defense ranking in the top 12 fantasy points per game allowed to opposing slot wide receivers in 8 of his 13 games this year. It's been a stout defensive run for my guy Russell Gage, but against those top 12 defenses, he's only averaging 5.4 targets per game. But in other games, Gage is averaging 7.6 targets per game and 15.9 fantasy points per game. Well, this matchup versus the Saints is looking like more of the latter, as their defense has given up the 12th most fantasy points per game to opposing slot wide receivers this year. And in the absence of Calvin Ridley, Pitts and Gage have really been the focal point for Mac Ryan in the passing game. Note that Pitts has been dealing with a hamstring injury throughout the week. He did practice in a limited capacity as of yesterday, and they are expecting him to be available. But if for whatever reason Pitts was unavailable, Russell Gage would probably be looking at a 35+% target share of this Atlanta Falcons offense. So definitely keeping an eye on that, and I like him either way, as I think Russell Gage is probably going to be looking at double-digit targets this week.
Yeah, I didn't really have Gage too much in my thought process as far as doing builds until literally just now. I didn't really look at this part of the notes when I was writing them earlier, but you've kind of talked me into maybe throwing him in a lineup or two. I think maybe his price is a little bit high for my liking, but I mean, you're going to have to get different a little bit this week, especially when we're all locking into certain studs. So I don't mind that Gage call at all. Another guy I'm unsure of is my own tight end here. I went cheap. I was trying to get a couple pump plays in there for you guys. It's David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns versus Cincinnati Bengals. Njoku is definitely a receiving tight end, and he definitely has kind of been a letdown this year. They got kind of that three-headed monster going on in Cleveland, and really none of the tight ends have been overwhelming with their play. But Njoku has played in 72% of the snaps last week. He had 4 targets with 1 red zone look. Austin Hooper, who is 3,600 this week, played in 49% of the snaps and had 5 targets with 1 red zone look as well. The Bengals have, however, allowed the 5th most fantasy points and targets to the tight end position. So I think that's where the appeal comes from. The question is, you're going to have to get lucky. This is definitely strictly a GPP play. Any Browns tight end is going to be a strictly GPP play, but I'd rather put my eggs in the Njoku basket if I had to pick one of them.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Went with a bottom barrel, tight end pricing here at 3,000 with my guy John Bates of the Washington football team, who seems to have really taken over as the primary tight end there for Washington after Ricky Seals-Jones exited the game early this past week with a neck injury. He took advantage by matching his season highs with 3 receptions on 4 targets. RSJ is officially questionable. While I think he is going to be available, I don't mind John Bates this week. With a matchup against the Giants where they should be able to keep it competitive and move the football, no doubt. I don't mind John Bates here at the 3K mark.
Yeah, it's not a bad call at all. And, speaking of the Washington football team, I'm going to jump right down into our sneaky DST plays. We don't really go for anything too expensive here, but we like to give you guys a couple cheap ideas because honestly, paying down at tight end is the only way to go. We joke around a lot about it at tight end. The DST, though, you're going to want to go cheap at DST. So my reasoning behind this is really simple. Mike Glennon's not even playing now, so it's going to be Jake Fromm starting. The Giants have mustered 108 and -10 passing yards over the last 2 games. Glennon went 4 for 11 for 24 yards last week, 2 interceptions, 4 sacks. The week before that, Glennon and Fromm combined to throw for 2 interceptions and took 2 sacks. The Giants are 28th in pass blocking, and Washington is 14th in the pass rush. The Washington football team hasn't been great this year. They've gotten better the second half of the season. They're still 29th in coverage ranking, but I have a very hard time believing that either of these Giants quarterbacks could possibly take advantage of that situation. Jake Fromm, Mike Glennon, I think it's all the same.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably going to be a popular DST just because it seems to be the Giants have been a team that we've been chasing when finding a DST that we want to use. So I think that's going to be another popular one as well, just given the quarterback situation that they have there. And they really haven't been able to get anything going turnover after turnover. So that's a great call. I got a couple of other ones. A little bit more expensive would be the Titans at the Houstons, like I mentioned. If you are going to have a Foreman build, I don't mind stacking it with the Titans defense. A couple of cheaper options for me would be the Lions. If we do get word that Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, and crew will not be partaking in this game, I would be interested in this Lions defense at home coming in at 2,400. And another one would be the Browns, who are facing off against the Bengals, I believe. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
And as we know, the Bengals are not planning to have their starters, and they're coming in at another reasonable price tag of 2,600. So I like both the Lions and the Browns this week. The Browns is probably going to be who I'm going to lock in off the rip. But as I mentioned, if I get word that Packers offensive stars are not going to be partaking, I do like me some Dan Campbell knee biting Lions at 2,400.
Yeah, I like both of these calls. The Lions, if they weren't playing at home, if this game was in Lambeau, I would want no part of it. But I do have the Lions in a few of my preliminary builds. And the Browns DST is one that I've been kind of bouncing back and forth with the last few weeks. I've been playing them on and off. They've got talented cornerbacks, talented defensive players. So both of these teams, 2,600 and under, I like both of them quite a bit. Before we move into our favorite part of the show where we build you guys a lineup or two, I do want to give a shout out to our partners over at Surfshark. Surfshark VPN is our hero product, bringing humanitized privacy, security, and access. It is the fastest growing VPN on the market and currently sits at number 3 globally in brand searches. They provide all cell phone, tablet, laptop, and CPU users with unbeatable VPN security for all your devices. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is a VPN? Let me fill you in. A VPN is a virtual private network. It's technology that allows you to set up a secure connection between your device and another device that you own via the public internet. It's like creating a special secret communication channel that nobody can snoop on. And with apps like Surfshark, it's also very easy to do. The best reason to use a VPN is simple: security online. You don't want to leave your digital breadcrumbs that connect all your online activities available for everyone to read. So with the VPN, you'll hide your IP address, which is like your home address, but for the internet, mask your activities from your internet service provider, and more.
Yeah, and furthermore, Nate, there's a lot of great shows on Netflix that are no longer available in the U.S. Well, with Surfshark, you can still watch shows like The Office here in the U.S. And for a limited time, Surfshark is offering 83% off for 3 months for free during their Black Friday sale. Head over to surfshark.com while you still can. Save some money and keep you and your family safe and relive all the best Michael Scott moments. That's surfshark.com and get a premium VPN service at a fraction of the cost. All right, Nate, you ready to build a DK lineup here? This is a big GPP build here. So, we gotta, get a little bit crazy. I don't want to play anything that's too chalky. I don't mind paying up there for the guys that might not see that ownership due to the price tag. But, let's get a little bit crazy. This is going to be a crazy week 18. So let's not be afraid to, partake and get a little crazy ourselves.
I'm down for some shenanigans, buddy. Is there anybody off the rip that you want in your lineup? Because there's one guy that I mentioned earlier that I definitely want. That's JT. If you think if you think his ownership's sustainable, I will check it real quick while we're talking about it.
Yeah, I don't mind that call. That can be our initial building block. We know that Indy is in a must-win situation here, and really it's a prime spot against Jacksonville, who offensively can't seem to get anything going, and defensively hasn't been anything that the league is talking about. So I think Taylor's in a smash spot. My only concern would be potentially they get so far ahead, even during the first half, that JT doesn't end up playing a full 4 quarters. But I think that he is in a good spot this week, and I don't mind starting the lineup build there, but I would be curious on the ownership.
His current projected ownership at Run the Sims is exactly the same as David Montgomery's. Both are at 17.8. We got Dalvin Cook at a 15.2, Sony Michel at a 13.9, which is interesting with Cam Akers possibly available to take a carry or two. But yeah, I think the 17% it's a little bit high. And, there is the worry that they get out to a lead, but my counter argument to that would probably be if they get out to a lead, it's because JT found pay dirt.
Yeah, I can definitely buy into that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll go with the next one, but I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to cheat a little bit and go to the DSTs and lock in those Browns that I was talking about, as I feel most confident in with where they are at as far as their opponent and what they'll be facing. As I did mention, though, I don't mind a couple of cheaper options if the value presents itself. Let's look at the quarterback position, Nate, and talk about what we want to do with our build from there.
Yeah, that's where it gets tricky, man. I've been doing some builds. I've been throwing around some different guys. I mean, I've even messed around with Trey Lance. I guess it kind of I think we have to go cheaper here. What do you think? I mean, or where are you feeling?
I'm going to do a little something real quick, and you just let me know if you're feeling this.
Yeah, that was kind of my idea too.
Because I love the savings with Huntley, really kind of breaks the sweat as far as paying all the way up there at 7,500 for Mark Andrews. But it's a matchup that we talked about that I think Baltimore is going to have to air the ball out. They really don't have a run game other than Huntley himself. Yes, that Freeman's there, and I'm all about buying into the resurgence of Freeman. But the fact of the matter is that Baltimore's run game isn't really what we've come to know it to be as of late. And I think Mark Andrews could definitely be seeing his fair share of targets once again this week. So starting out, Huntley, Andrews, Taylor, and a cheap DST that we expect to be in a good spot this week in a home game against the backup team for the Cincinnati Bengals. I really like how we've started, but we are going to have to find some cheap guys to really help kind of balance this out before we get a little too crazy here.
Just for the record, real quick, Mark Andrews has 69 targets over the last 7 weeks. I had to double check that real quick. 69 targets over the last 7 weeks. Jesus.
And I mean, at this point in the season, can't hold anything back now, so look for those targets to keep on rolling for Mark Andrews this week against Pittsburgh.
Right. So we do got to find some value here. How do you feel about Ray at 3,800?
I like that call. We were a lot higher on Ray and Claypool, even if you will, with Deontay Johnson out of the picture. But he was on the COVID list, activated off the COVID list today. Kind of changes things a little bit. But even with Deontay Johnson, the past few weeks, we have seen Ray McLeod really kind of be that underneath target for Ben Roethlisberger, and I think that's going to continue. And Deontay Johnson just really pulling that coverage off a little bit more. Now, Baltimore, technically, I think their best coverage due to the injuries that they have at this point, their best coverage guys are there in the slot. It's really those outside cornerbacks they're really struggling as far as depth goes right now. But I think Ray McLeod, it's really that volume is going to be safe. And if we could just get him in the end zone, that's really all you need to bring back. But he's probably solid for, 6 or 7 receptions for 70 yards. And you just really hope that touchdown comes, or maybe it ends up being 8 or 9 receptions for, if he can get over that C note.
If he can just even with his price tag, even at 5 receptions, if he found the end zone, he would clear value easily. Yeah, right now his projected ownership is at 7.5%, so that could drop more with Deontay back into, which hopefully we would like it to. But yeah.
What other running backs do you like here? I'm going to name a couple. We got Rashad Penny, 6,500. AJ Dillon, we don't know what's going to happen with Green Bay. I feel like there's a lot of pieces that really revolve on what's going to happen with Green Bay. Whether AJ Dillon, he's not exactly AJ Dillon's going to get the start because we're resting all of our starters. At this point, AJ Dillon is pretty much integral to this Green Bay offense. And if they're resting their starters, AJ Dillon might be included in that. So something to keep an eye on. They might be starting a Taylor or somebody else even called up from the practice squad this week, and it's just something to keep an eye on as news will continue to unfold as we get closer to Sunday.
Yeah, so there was something we didn't even talk about on the show, and I was actually wanting to talk to you about earlier, is that the Tampa Bay running back situation. I know that Rojo's out. I'm not sure what exactly is going on with Fournette yet. Have you heard any update on? Oh, he's on IR, so yeah, he's out. What about any of these 2 cheaper Tampa Bay running backs? I think it's, we got Le'Veon Bell and Keyshawn Vaughn. I think it's probably going to be a pretty split workload, so I'm not sure how appealing either guy is. I just wanted to bring it up to you real fast.
Yeah, what's the price tags? Let me go down here. So you got Vaughn at 5,300. We got to think Bell now is in the mix at 5,000. So it's really probably going to be a mixture of Vaughn and Bell, but it just leads me to believe that Brady's going to dink and dunk past his way down the field and just kind of, use the extension of the run with the pass, if you will. And while I think both could be great GPP flyers, neither one I think will demand any really true ownership on the main slate. So if you're looking for a mass multi-enter that you're going to just try and get a little weird, I think those guys are good. That's even a little bit too weird for me. right now. So let's go back. I think there's other guys that we can find, even some of the guys that we mentioned earlier in the show. Devin Singletary at 6,000, Antonio Gibson 5,800, Foreman 5,700.
If you want to get real weird, you can play Rex Burkett. He needs about, I think, like 130 rushing yards for a $300,000 bonus. I'm not being serious. We're not playing Burkett.
Michael Carter coming in at a cool 5,000.
Ooh, I don't mind that. Let me keep looking here.
There's not many guys below that I like.
I love Singletary. I'm worried about his ownership. And even at 6, I'm not sure we're getting enough value right now. Ooh, Carter, yeah, that's kind of
Sony Michel feels like a pretty good one too, but I think he's probably going to be one of the highest owned running backs on the slate. I'm guessing 20% for Sony Michel. I don't know if you've looked.
I haven't. I will look real
just
quick.
because he's really the lone dog there on a potent offense in the Rams, and San Fran, while they can be a stout opponent, when you're getting that amount of volume and just really guaranteed work, you can't get away from Sony Michel at 6,000, especially in cash build if you're going to dabble this week.
Yeah, he's projected at 14% right now. Is Samaje Perine going to be the one that starts for the Bengals now then, with the starters all resting?
I'm guessing so.
His projected ownership right now is 2.5%, and Run the Sims has him projected for 17.5 points. Obviously that could be wrong, but
yeah, 5,300. But obviously doesn't tick well with our Browns DST. So I'm gonna shy away for right now.
Yeah, I feel you. Oh, your guy Foreman's there too at 57. I don't know, man. What are you thinking?
When in doubt, go for the cheaper option. And I think Foreman is one of the cheapest options I'm comfortable with this week at 5,700.
I would say the same thing. After that, I'm not comfortable with really any of these guys.
Okay, so we'll lock him in 5,700. That's giving us just north of 51K per position, which is 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. Let's go to the wide receiver position, and who's another cheap guy that we could maybe get behind this week to allow us to have some quality guys a little bit north of this?
Oh, it's your dude from the Cardinals. What's his name? Antoine Wesley.
Wesley?
Yeah.
Oh, Wesley? 4,100. So he is up there north. Is there anybody cheaper than that?
Gotta say more.
Yeah, no, just what about Josh Palmer? No, they're playing Vegas on this, right?
I'm trying to see if we play Wesley, it gives us it only gives us 56.5 left per player. I don't hate that though.
I don't hate it. Let's plug it in and see what we can do. And if we feel like we need to come off that and get a little bit cheaper, we can. Right. So now 56.50 per. Let's come down into that range. There's a couple guys in that range. I know Russell Gage, a guy I talked about, is in that range.
Yeah, brother Matt mentioned Elijah Mitchell at 6.
Yeah, I do like him this week as well. He's another guy I had tipped to him. I got so many shares of him.
You were huge on him.
It's panned out so good. It was just one of those dart throws, coming in 3rd, 4th round of rookie drafts every time, getting him in the 3rd, 4th. Eventually, towards the end of rookie season, I think it started to progress. He was becoming a late 2nd, but still, just his dynasty stock has gone through the roof this season, and rightfully so, because when getting the work, he has produced.
I think as high as I was on Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think you were just as high, if not higher, on Elijah Mitchell.
All right. Let's go to the wide receiver position.
I wish Amon-Ra wasn't so expensive. Just kills me.
I like Jacoby Myers this week against Miami, but he's still questionable right now.
Mm-hmm. Wow, Van Jefferson's dropped to 5,100. That's because his targets are all getting taken away.
Yeah, and OBJ's right there at 5,800.
I would.
We got Hollywood Brown at 5,900, who just really hasn't come through.
He's kind of gotten cold.
Christian Kirk 6,000.
Yeah.
A little pricey at that point. All right, let's go with my guy Russell Gage to keep matters moving here, and
Yeah,
that
good
leaves
idea.
us still right there at 5,700, and it's right there at that. We got Kyle Pitts, Kareem Hunt, Tyler Boyd is a no-go
This
probably.
I got to see how you feel about this. How do you feel about, as I mentioned earlier, going double tight end and putting Ertz in at the flex? Do you hate
Yeah,
that, or
no, absolutely. I don't mind that at all.
I think it gets you enough differentiation, from your opponents to where it could actually pay off quite good, I believe.
All right, let me back off Gage real quick because we saved a couple $100 by doing that.
Okay.
And that does get us up to Christian Kirk, who kind of bodes not well with Ertz. But as we mentioned, those are the two guys for Kyler Murray's offense, really. But we also have Wesley in there. we can't do that.
Triple stack.
Yeah, I don't mind getting the pieces that we have right now, but I'm going to stick with Gage. I'm going to stick with Gage right now. I don't mind leaving 400 in the bank. There's a good chance that we're going to have to make some pivots between now and lock anyway. As I mentioned, maybe defense clears up. We end up with a couple $100 more, or we end up, right there at that price range. While we said Foreman was our lowest price running back we were comfortable with, we could take him out of the picture at this point. And now we are north of 6K for a running back, and we can get Singletary or Mitchell that we mentioned, Sony Michel. Those three guys right there, all in the 6K range, are going to be guys that I'm probably going to pivot through my RB1 position, just guys that I don't mind the price tag and I like the expected workload that we're going to see from them this week at 6K right there. I like all three of those guys. Pick your poison, Nate. We had Singletary in our write-ups. We don't go and talk about Singletary enough. Let's plug him in this week in that favorable matchup against the Jets. And there we have our lineup build. Run through it one more time with me, Nate. It is Huntley at quarterback, JT there at the RB1 with Singletary bringing up the RB2, Ray McLeod for the wide receiver position with Wesley, our two wide receiver punts, if you will. My guy, Russell Gage, bringing the Falcons some dignity against the Aints, and Mark Andrews coming in at the tight end position to stack with our quarterback there in Huntley. And to get a little bit weird, we added an additional tight end there at the flex with Zach Ertz, who's been an absolute target hog for Kyler Murray in the absence of DeAndre Hopkins, with my Browns defense representing against the Cincinnati Bengals B squad. I like this lineup, and I'm going to lock it in.
I like it a lot too, man. It definitely got a little weird for a minute, but that's what we're about right now.
All right, Nate, that was fun, man. I always enjoy doing these builds, getting to talk through it. Often I'm doing these builds and I'm just by myself in my own head as I'm doing it. I kind of like being able to talk aloud, and not only that, talk about it with somebody right there as we're doing the build. It's fun for me, and I hope it's as fun for the viewers as it is for us.
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite part of the show. I appreciate the guys that were in the comments suggesting players. I've seen guys like Ayuk and stuff mentioned. Those are all solid plays. Make sure you're following us on Twitter on Sunday morning. And, we're going to be throwing around various ideas. There's going to be late news coming out. So we'll try to be as active as possible on there to help you guys win some money this week.
Yeah, and big shout out to brother Matt, and that's at DY_nasty dude on Twitter, as he makes all the layovers for this show and intro videos and handles all of the production work from that aspect. So we always like to make sure we give him a hat tip, as he is not on the screen and getting the FaceTime that Nate and I are, but he does not go overlooked, especially in our eyes. And we really appreciate everything he does behind the scenes. And big shout out to our friends at Viridian Global. Make sure you check them out. Get your own SODFS gear or Sons of Dynasty gear, along with plenty of other FF brands and players alike in around the industry. Viridian Global really does have it all. So make sure you check them out, viridianglobal.com. And if you're looking for a promo code, slide into the DMs there at Dynasty Sons, and we might be able to hook you up. Nate, anything else you want to cover before we get out of here tonight, my man?
I wanted to also say thank you to brother Matt. Personally, myself, like you said, he goes above and beyond for us. He makes the show what it is. He makes it fun too, just the different layouts he does, the ideas he's throwing at us, logo redesigns, some clothes we might have him coming out this winter. So Brother Matt, we appreciate all your hard work and your friendship very much. I wanted to give a shout out to Surfshark, as we mentioned earlier. Promo code SODFS there is going to save you 83% for 3 months. Run the Sims, promo code SODFS again will save you 10% off their premium tools. So while the season is winding down, your fantasy football season's over, you can still play DFS with us for the next month or so. And Run the Sims has great premium tools to help you win some money. And of course, the folks over at Trophy Smack, you can grab that trophy for the end of the year. Money's cool, but a big fancy trophy is even better. So you can use our promo code SODFS there for the trophy and a free championship ring. And I want to thank everybody that tuned in tonight, everybody that tunes in every night, or every week, I should say. We love and appreciate you guys very much.
Yeah, on behalf of everybody from Sons of Dynasty and True North Fantasy Football, we really do appreciate you tuning in with us this evening and looking forward to the Week 18 NFL main slate on Draftkings. So without everything else being said, much love to everybody.
Peace, guys.
SODFS is for entertainment only and to add value to your sports experience. We give you our advice and strategy that we will employ ourselves. SODFS is not intended for those under the age of 18.
I like the mobbit. I like the mobbit. I like the mobbit.